In our previous adventure, I took on and eventually defeated the Primadon. I took on these trials as preparation to head back down into Layer 2 of the Depths and eventually defeat the current final boss of Deepwoken. That being said, that prep is not finished with the Primadon. In the conclusion of that video, I made mention of the Duke of Erisia. This guy hides up in his ivory tower, committing unspeakable experiments upon live test subjects. An evil that after today will not continue. Defeating the Duke itself is going to be a feat, but before we can even do that, the first thing we need to do is be able to access his laboratory to begin with. See, the Duke is careful. He locks his doors and doesn't let people just walk right in. So, we're gonna need a key. After speaking to a curious citizen in Etris who's wondering about the Lord Regent, we make our way down to the library in order to try to get information on him. After talking to the librarian, this Lord Regent seems like a pretty shady guy. Anyone who takes over for a king and starts burning books is probably bad news. When pressed for information, the librarian basically just said, "Be careful asking questions," and sent me on my way. I headed back to report the shady dealings to Kenneth, the man who I'd been talking to earlier, and he was gone. Searching Etris, and Kenneth could not be found anywhere. Something was up. Eventually, after wandering through the backwoods of Etris, I found Kenneth. Or at least, what's left of him anyway. And next to Kenneth, an Etrian royal guard? I spoke to the guard and he told me that I had an audience with the Lord Regent, but he would not clarify any further. So I suppose I don't have any other options. Walking up to the palace entrance, and I let the royal guard standing there know that I had an audience. And as such, he let me in. I made my way through the dimly lit and foreboding hallways of the Lord Regent's palace, and made my way up the stairs where the Lord Regent himself was waiting for me. The Regent addressed me by name, and asked me to go retrieve something called the Forge of Sin. This was going to be located in Duke Erisia's manor, hence how we're going to fight him. The Regent had the key, and so I would be able to get in. That being said, when I tried to ask more questions in order to attain more information, I was promptly shut down and shuffled out of the palace. Well, no other thing to do now than head to Erisia and take on the Duke. Or not. I slowly fought my way through the burning stone gardens and eventually ended up at a giant door. Unfortunately, I was otherwise unaware of how to open the door, so I had to go around. Eventually, I reached a cliff face and decided it was time for a leap of faith. Thankfully, panning out due to my general map knowledge, I was able to glide to the front of the Duke's laboratory. I opened up the gate and headed into the foreboding halls. The entrance to the laboratory was absolutely swarming with enemies. Whether it be these mindless test subjects that charged me with reckless abandon, or the brain suckers just littered around all over the place. After painstakingly clearing out all of the enemies, here we are. I hit the switch for the elevator and ascended into the Duke's laboratory. This place was massive, and under the cold purple glow of the lights above, I started to make my way through. When I headed up the first set of stairs, I ran into 2 modified golems and yet another swarm of test subjects. At this point in my journey, I had killed hundreds of golems and had faith in myself in order to take on these. This hubris would prove to be almost fatal as the fight quickly took a turn for the worst. I lost mountains of health in the blink of an eye and was forced to retreat. I got extremely lucky with one of the stone golems getting stuck, meaning that I could 1v1 the other golem. Being able to 1v1 the golems made it significantly easier, and eventually I was able to finish both of them off. Moving further in, and there was just one golem this time, which meant easy pickings. I dispatched the golem with minimal effort, and there he was, the Duke.
So you're the one running about tripping my alarms, Can't explain yourself? That thing is finally making its move, I had thought it would come personally, but the Lord Regent must see me as a mere agent's workload. I'd thought for sure you were an agent, but what? Let me guess, some notable Etrian adventurer or something. That island's prospects are certainly grim. There's no real point in explaining further, as this is the end of the line. Even if you gave up on the forge, I'm not about to let one who's seen this manor's layout roam free.
And now, the fight begins. The Duke surrounded himself in a gale force barrier that I could not chip through. Every single attack that I threw at him would quickly be parried. Not only that, but he continuously rose into the air, throwing several different attacks at me, most of which I was able to avoid, but a few catching me off guard. Eventually, after trading enough blows with the Duke, I was able to bring down his barrier. With this, I could finally deal damage to the man himself. I quickly pressured him towards the wall so that way he couldn't retreat. Things were going well, but then he managed to vent out of my attacks and summon several of his minions to take me on. These minions that otherwise should have been easy pickings really gave me a run for my money. The stun lock that these guys have is absolutely brutal to try to get out of. And if they start hitting you in a specific rhythm, good lord, good luck. I was eventually able to dispatch the minions, but unfortunately the Duke has a countering move. In my reckless attempt to continuously hit him, I triggered this on more than one occasion. As the fight dragged on, I eventually managed to pin him back into the corner, but once again, he vented out. In what appeared to be an act of sheer desperation, the Duke, on his last legs, pushed his advantage. He tried to take me on with every last ounce of his strength, but eventually, it was just too much, and he fell by my hand. He was in disbelief, but alas, it was over. I grabbed some of the loot from his chest and headed back outside. With my mission complete, now I really wanted answers. Why did the Duke refer to the Lord Regent as a thing? And furthermore, why did that mean that Etris's future was in danger? I figured there would be no better way than to attempt to question the Lord Regent himself. And after all, I had completed his task. Sure, I didn't have the Forge of Sin, but how the hell was I gonna haul that thing all the way back here? On my way back down the mountain, I was ambushed by Ministry scouts. I didn't think too much of this at the time. The Ministry is no fan of me, and I've made quick work of their goons in the past. So I did the same here, hopped on my boat, and headed back to Etris. Traversing back through the royal gardens, and it was quiet. Too quiet. I could tell something was off, but I continued anyway. I had to get my answers. The guards let me in as always, and I walked back up the stairs. I let the Regent know that I'd defeated the Duke, and then... Betrayal. It's all I could think about. I had gone and done the Duke's dirty work, and just like Kenneth, a loose end, I had been discarded. I woke up in the dark, murky waters of the depths, defeated. What was it all for? The training, the getting good, and for what? Just to get stabbed in the back? And that attack he used? The Ministry. How is it all connected? I wasn't sure, and I wasn't sure I'd ever know, because the depths is a dangerous place to be. I aimlessly wandered the waste, dispatching of any enemies that I came across. But the depths, as it always does, would prove to be just as dangerous as I had expected. I half-heartedly began attacking a corrupted mudskipper broodlord, and then disaster struck. A second, there was no way. It couldn't be done. I fled, managed to break aggro, and then aggroed a single one of the broodlords. But even then, in my mentally weakened state, it proved too much for me. I was forced to flee. I sat there, low health and afraid, stuck in the corner of the drowned city. And I simply had to reflect on everything that I'd been through up until that point. Through trials and tribulations, I managed to defeat the Primadon. Not only that, but when I went to take on the Duke, I did it on the first try. Surely I can't let my defeat come at one simple mudskipper broodlord. No, absolutely not. I was gonna see this thing through to the very end. And that couldn't happen if I died here. With renewed vigor, I ran back out to take it on. And with my wits about me, I not only made short work of the first Mudskipper Broodlord, but just for good measure, I killed the second one too. Traversing through the rest of the drowned city, I headed to the elevator to progress to my trial. Contrary to popular belief, I actually haven't been down here too many times via death, and because of that, my depth trial is still the Enforcer. Compared to the Primadon and the Duke, this thing is basically chump change. Doubly so with the newfound strategy of using my critical in order to break his guard and deal extra damage. Thanks to the comments section for that one. I brought down the Enforcer and returned to the surface. I was still alive, and my quest in order to get stronger had to continue. While I was making my way out of the depths, I'd heard rumblings. Rumblings of another trial that could really test my mettle. The Ferryman. Rumor has it that deep inside the Void Sea, right outside the Etrian Luminant, lies Boatman's Watch. And if you do a specific ritual at Boatman's Watch, you can put your skills to the test against the Ferryman. Now, why is he here and what are his motivations? That didn't matter to me anymore. All I could see was my goal. So with that, I jumped on my ship and sailed out. I slowly but surely made my way to the southwestern portion of the map, and then headed into the Void Sea. With all of the information that I had, it would seem that if I just took a straight shot from this area, I should easily be able to make it to Boatman's Watch. Or so I thought. I got further and further away from the place I started, eventually being completely unable to see the rocks that I was using as my guide. And as I continued to sail into the Void Sea, something felt off. Surely I should have found the Boatman's Watch by now. I opened up my map, and... what? I'm up here. The Void had dislocated my ship and placed me miles off course. If I hadn't noticed this, I would have simply been wandering directly into the Void Sea towards my untimely demise. Still unsure if I was going to be able to recover, I turned the boat 180 degrees and started making my way back. And thankfully, I did manage to escape the clutches of the Void Sea. That being said, how exactly was I meant to get to Boatman's Watch if going into the Void Sea meant that at any point I could get dislocated somewhere else? Well, fortunately for me, the new angle that I came from meant that I could see Boatman's Watch ever so slightly before the fog of the Void Sea kicked in. So I knew where I was going. As I made my way over there, I saw something horrifying. The Dread Serpent. Why was that there? Frankly, I'm not entirely sure. Whether it be someone simply trolling because they thought it would be funny to lock off the Boatman's Watch, or they were simply trying to defeat it themselves and failed. Either way, no one was fighting it, and it was just sitting there. I made my way around the beast, climbed up, and to my surprise, when I got to the front of Boatman's Watch, it was gone. Where it went, I'm not sure, but I'll count myself as lucky. Another adventurer had been here before me and already activated the Boatman's Watch, so I destroyed their campfires, placed my own, and I was teleported to the arena.
Oh, it seems one of you land dwellers has finally decided to wake me up. Well, Squirt, what do you want? Well, that's quite rude, isn't it? Asking my name without even giving your own. Typical land dwellers. No manners, I swear. Oh, come on, I'm just pulling your leg. Anywho, I don't think I'll be telling you my name, but how's about a little wager? Yes, a wager. You mortals love wagers, from what I've seen anyway. You bet your life, and I bet a relic you might be interested in. How's that sound?
I wasn't really here for the relic, but I agreed to the terms, and the fight began. The ferryman proved to be a tricky son of a bitch. This guy would teleport away almost every single time that I tried to attack him. Not only that, but several of his attacks continuously caught me off guard. I would take damage, go to try to damage him, and then he would be gone. I eventually determined that if I was able to perfectly avoid any of the ferryman's attacks, that was how I was going to be able to get damage. That meant either completely parrying his dash strikes, breaking through his hordes of clones, or entirely avoiding his lightning strikes from the sky. I also decided that it was in my best interest to place down a campfire just in case things continued to get out of hand. If I was able to successfully deal with some of the attacks, it would mean that I could heal myself mid-fight. This would prove invaluable. Slowly but surely, I continued to get better at dealing with the ferryman's attacks, but in the process of doing that, I took far too much damage. I decided to be better safe than sorry and get a little bit of a heal in. My strategy was proving effective. At a sizable enough a range, I would have time to react to his attacks and jump off the campfire to deal with them. I dealt more and more damage over time and eventually pushed him into his second phase. Unfortunately, right at the start of the second phase, the ferryman got a boatload of cheap shots in and almost took me out. This was do or die. I had to heal, but the ferryman was standing right next to my campfire. I tried to move him away, but he teleported once again, almost directly next to it. I had to get this heal, no matter the risk. That was when I was finally given a break. The ferryman, despite being right next to my campfire, decided that he solely wanted to use his multi-grand javelin attack. This attack has a very, very obvious and unique windup to the other two, which meant that I was able to get a quick heal in, hear the attack, dodge out of the way, head back, and heal a bit more. After painstakingly healing a ton of the damage that I was dealt back, it was time to get back into the fight. And I screwed up again. Taking far too much damage, I was once again pretty much back where I started. But I had a grasp on how his attack patterns worked, so I plopped down another campfire and got back to healing. Once I finally managed to top off my health, I got back into the fight. This time though, I really knew what I was up against. And after another handful of successful attacks, the ferryman admitted defeat. He refused to elaborate on who he was or why he was here, but at this point, I only had one goal. And now, it feels like that goal is truly within reach. I'm ready. It's time for vengeance.